But you reached a block here and there, and the people weren't there or right for you, or the funding wasn't right for you, or didn't come, or you started it on your own and tried to fund it yourself and it didn't work. And that's even worse, because that then, of course, is a scar. It's a scar on that which you think is your spiritual goal. You tried it, it didn't work, even though you got a message that it was supposed to. So what happens next? Let's just say that there are some of you listening right now who had a big message in the past to do something, and you tried it and it didn't work. I have a message for all of you. And this is the message. Are you ready? Who said you were to do it now? And the answer you would have, is, of course I'm supposed to do it now. And this is where it gets good, because here is where your linearity and your humanness get in the way of spiritual messages. In your life, dear ones, any authority figure, whether it was in school, or whether it was home, or whether it was your boss at work, when they said, I want you to do this, they meant when? And the answer is now. But when Spirit shows you something, it's not that way. Here is the message I really, truly want to get across to you today about timing for these things for yourself. And here's the message. The first step is you receive confirmation, or you start to collect that which your intuition says is what you're supposed to do. And collect it meaning that you start finding the ideas that will go into it and what you might do to make it and accomplish it. But you don't actually do it until the timing is right. Now, for those of you who tried something when you thought the timing was right in a past energy and it didn't work, it's harder for you to do it again because you already think you failed. How linear of you. All you did was you did it at the wrong time. Well, then the next question is, how do I know the right time? And the answer is really good. It will be shown to you. There will be no question. When it's right, somebody will come up to you, like maybe a year later. You're supposed to build a healing center. You got all ready to go, perhaps, and nothing fall into place. And so now you're sitting there saying, I failed. And a year later, somebody comes up to you and says, I'd like to build a healing center with you, and I've got all of the resources. And you go, yes, this would be a good thing, because you realize you should have waited. There are many of these things that we present to you slowly. We give you confirmation, and Spirit loves you so much that it's not going to let you sit and wallow in wonder. When you have something really good, light to spread to this planet, programs that'll work, classes to do, books to write, healing centers to build. And that will then be given to you as an aha and a yes, and this is why you're here, dear one. And then we're saying, stop and wait. Wait for the right things to come along, and they will. They will. Because it was given to you for that reason, not so you can sit there and wonder if you failed. Spirit loves you enough to go in the second round with you, to show you the ones that you perhaps were waiting for, or the resources that perhaps you were waiting for, or perhaps, even in the case of my partner, the information that was missing that now would be given to you that completes the puzzle. So again, we tell you, you have a very linear idea of when, and that has to do with timing. Spirit loves you enough to give you information in advance for you to look at and let mature and grow upon. And then when the timing is right, to activate that which you knew you came for. Does that make sense to you, dear ones? That there would be that much love. It doesn't happen all at once. It doesn't have to happen all at once. It's up to you completely. So the next time you get this wonderful idea, or perhaps you're shown something that you truly are here to do, and you say, I knew it. Don't then go off and do it immediately. Stop for a moment and say, is it complete? Is it ready? Do I have the resources? Those perhaps I'm supposed to meet who will then complete the picture. And if it doesn't feel right, then wait. And know it's okay to wait. And nothing will be harmed in waiting for the right things at the right time. Timing is the key, dear ones. And we are with you in the timing. We'll supply you with what you need in order to accomplish those things that you came for. It's a great message about timing that's personal, isn't it? There's more. I'm Kryon, in love with humanity. And so it is.
And with that beautiful information from Kryon, all about timing, it is now time for me to invite you to come back into your body, bring your awareness back into the room, and if you've had those eyes of yours closed, I invite you to open your eyes and welcome back to this next section of Healing Wednesday. And tonight's guest just fills me with such joy. Paul Selig is so unique in what he does and is helping so many people on the planet. And before we tell you about Paul, I want to just make sure he's on the live feed with us. Paul, are you there?
I'm here, thank you.
Wonderful. Lee, another channeler.
I'm biased. You took
Yes.
the word. I'm excited because we have another channeler.
Yes.
And we just love that. Paul Selig is considered to be not just another channeler. He's a foremost spiritual channel working today. Wait till you hear what he does. In his breakthrough works of channeled literature, including I Am the Word and the Kingdom, Paul has recorded an extraordinary program of personal and planetary evolution for humankind as it awakens to its own divine nature.
Now, as a way to gain a context for what he was beginning to experience, he studied a form of energy healing, and oh my gosh, can you believe it, that he actually began to hear for his clients. And described as a medium for the living, Paul has this unique ability to step into and become the people that his clients ask about, and he often takes on their personalities and physical characteristics as he hears them telepathically. Now, Paul offers channeled workshops internationally, and he serves on the faculty of the Omega Institute and the Selig Institute.
Also noted, he's a noted educator. He served on the faculty of the New York University for over 25 years and directed the Master of Fine Arts and Creative Writing program at Goddard College. He lives in Maui, and that's where he's coming from right now as he talks to us, where he maintains a private practice as an intuitive and conducts frequent online and live streaming seminars. So, Paul, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
All right. We are dealing with something that's really unusual. We haven't had any channeler or any guest who can do what you are famous for doing. I mean famous, it really is true that you've been around a long time doing this. And what I know is we're talking about the upper room, and that's what you've called. I love that whole phrase. It really explains everything. So I ask all of our guests, how did it happen? When did you know that this was occurring?
It was a process for me. It wasn't anything that I was looking to do. I wasn't somebody who necessarily even really believed much in channeling. I was raised sort of an atheist in New York City. But I started to open up spiritually and psychically when I was 25. I actually heard a voice telling me to stop partying, although they said it rather differently. And when I quit everything that I was doing at that time, I began to open up psychically and not really understand what was happening. And I was encouraged by friends to check out some form of healing, and I ended up studying it. And I found that when I had my hand on people's bodies, I could hear things for them. So if I had my hand on your chest and I heard the name, Philip, I learned to say, who's Philip? And they'd say, my brother, my son, my father, my lover. And as I began to trust that, I began to sort of open up the station, the channel, more. I started a little group that met in my apartment once a week. It was very quiet. I didn't advertise. I was a college teacher, and I didn't really want people to know about this. But I expected to just be doing the work that my teacher had taught, and I actually began getting messages the first session. And this went on for about 18 years. So I kept this little group in my apartment for 18 years. And gradually, what had begun with sort of energetic transmissions that were very palpable and very physical, which is what I liked about them. I could feel the energy. You couldn't fake it. At a certain point, they began lecturing through me. It was around the time I quit smoking when I was 48. So I'd been doing it for a while. And, suddenly whatever filter was there that was inhibiting seemed gone. And all I knew was that I was talking more. I wasn't interested in the information that was coming through me. I was far more interested in the energy and the attunements that they were bringing through to work with them. And so when I became willing to, sit down and record them and transcribe them, which I hadn't wanted to do because I didn't like to hear myself channel. I whisper and repeat. It's very clumsy, but it's how it comes. But once I began to do that, they said, we have a book to write, and if you take 2 weeks, we'll do it. And that was the first of now 10 books. The first one took 2.5 weeks because I took 2 days off to go teach at NYU. But, this is what they've been doing through me for the last 11 years. And I've left my academic life, and this is now what I do. But I think of myself primarily as a stenographer when I'm channeling. I'm just there taking dictation. It's really not about interpretation. I interrupt when I don't understand something, and they tolerate that kindly. And the other work that I do, which was mentioned, was sort of the mediumship for the living, which is, I don't even know how that happened. Somebody once asked me to tune into somebody, what do you get on my father? And I tuned in, and all of a sudden the woman gasped. He said, oh my God, you look just like him. And it began to happen again and again and again. And so I think of myself kind of as a switchboard. When I'm working with the guides, I'm tuned into their station. And when I'm reading for a client or somebody in a workshop, I'm tuning into them or the people that they ask about. And I can sort of broker conversations at a higher level that way, which are interesting because you can hear different aspects of people, either the personality self that's struggling or stuck, or, a higher aspect that sort of can explain why and what is needed and best course of action. So that's what I do and how it happened.
That is incredible.
It really is.
I, along with probably many other people hearing this, aspire to be you. I mean, you are touching into the field.
I know.
That is what many of us are wanting to do, to connect with the field, to connect with not just our guides, but also the guides of others. So one of the things in your books, you talk about attunements. So I would love to hear from your experience. What is an attunement and how do they work?
Well, the attunements are spoken. If somebody takes like a Reiki class or something, my teacher, who was doing her own thing, held my hands in hers and put her hand to my heart. And suddenly I was able to run this energy, which was explicit. You couldn't deny it. The guides that I work with use spoken attunement, and they say that the language that they use is encoded with vibration. And so there's a series of attunements, and the books all hold them that seem to gradually, support and uplift in alignment. And they talk about this in different ways, but the example that I use is like a jukebox. So if you press D3, you're going to hear the song on D3, and the encoded language is essentially letting us do the same thing. So the nice thing about the attunements is they seem to, once they're spoken or invoked, they're present in the field. And when they're spoken again, you can feel the energy again. And again, this stuff is palpable. I'm not a good new ager. I'm not terribly woo-woo. It's just not how I'm comfortable. But I like stuff that I could feel. And I like being in a room of many people, and we all say this, and we all feel, the energy shift or expand. You can send it, you can receive it. So there's a series of them. And the very first one was dictated in a group when I was maybe 33 years old, and I'm now 60. And they still use the very first one, which was an attunement to what they call the word, which they say is the energy of the creator in action. They say there is one note sung in the universe that's in manifestation as all things. Everything's in tone or sound, and they're aligning us at that level, and they continue to support us in going up, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. How does this relate now to the upper room? Let's talk about that.
Well, the upper room is I mean, I was once sitting in with a friend who was saying, "Well, Paul, you're gonna get some questions about yourself, because I have a very hard time reading for myself." But she had questions listed, and she said, "You know what, Paul? What's up with Paul?" And the guide said, "Well, Paul's job is to hold the door for others." And I went, "Oh crap, that's not what I want to hear at all." But it was at the seventh book, I think. And they were dictating it in front of an audience at the Esalen Institute in Big Sur. And at the end of a 5-day workshop, they invited everybody in the workshop to step across a threshold to what they call the upper room. And it was huge. We all felt this enormous lifting. And they've done it ever since. It's like once it's been established, it's present. So the guides say that the upper room is the octave above the one that we're commonly operating in. They say everything is expressing in what they call octaves. They don't talk in science, maybe because I flunked science, but, they do talk in music. And they said, we are expressing in an octave. We're living in an octave. It's a shared reality. But they say any piece of music can be sung or transposed to a higher octave. The purpose of the attunements is that transposition. Mm-hmm. So the upper room, they say, is the level of consciousness that expresses above the one, the common field that we're used to. They've called it Christ consciousness as a descriptor, but I don't know that that's important to them. And it's interesting because there's no fear there. And they say, they'll bring their students to the upper room and they'll say, "Well, what are you afraid of?" And there's nothing. It's like this doesn't exist at that level. You have to go back downstairs, which we do all the time, to have our battles and our fears. So it's from that level of awareness that they call the upper room that they say, we have access to far more. And that's where they take us. And the last 3 books that they dictated really were all about that. I don't know where they're going. Well, they finished the next one, but they're talking now really about the kingdom, which they say is the awareness of the inherent divine that is in all manifestation. But you have to be able to perceive it, and you really can't perceive it from the lower strata, which they say we've been so encumbered by fear. We're so used to fear that it's an expectation. It's just we were all born into this field that was fraught with it. And so beginning to operate beyond that, which is one of their intentions for us, I think, collectively, is a surprise, but that's where everything can become more possible.
I think the fact that you said we are born into fear and then we move, when we get to the upper room, it just doesn't exist. Right. That is so pertinent for right now when our media and the chaos that's happening out there is fear-based. Mm-hmm. And I would love to know what your guides are telling you about the future of humanity, because we are really in the test of fear right now.
Well, I get good news, if you want to call it. I suppose good is subjective, but I've heard that we're in a period of enormous opportunity. In the very first book they dictated, which was called I Am the Word, they said, humanity is at a time of reckoning, and a reckoning is a facing of oneself and all of one's creations, and that everything that's been created in fear will need to be recreated in a higher way, beyond that structure. And that includes institutions and everything that we've sort of been entrenched, by greed or the need to control and all that stuff. So I hear it's good. They talk about it, though, really as a tidal wave of change. And you can ride it effectively. To struggle against it's going to be pretty tough. It doesn't really work. And part of that is about really becoming unattached. And that's very hard. The guides say it's like, we're being moved to the 20th floor after having lived in the basement apartment, and we're used to the view from the transom window in the basement. You go upstairs to the 20th floor, and there's a whole different view and a whole other way of being. And suddenly we say, oh my God, I left the family photo album. Oh my God, I left my ex's clothes in the closet. And we run back down to the basement because we're comfortable there. Mm-hmm. So that's the process I think that we're being invited to engage in, which is to sort of see what we're holding on to that stands in the way. And the guides keep it simple. They say the action of fear is to claim more fear. And every choice we make in fear gets us more of the same. Or what you damn, they say, damns you back. What you bless, blesses you in return. Who you put in darkness, what you put in darkness, calls you to the darkness. So it's simple, simple, simple. But it's, harder because we like to invest in what we think we want. So they've talked about this as great opportunity. They've said, in terms of the future of humanity, and this was really only maybe about a year ago, they started saying humanity has made a choice at a higher level to move through this. So humanity will survive. I don't get that it's necessarily going to be terribly comfortable for any of us. I don't get that it's necessarily the swan boat ride. But, if it's a tidal wave, it's probably not the swan boat ride. It's probably going to be a little choppy sometimes. So I trust that at this point. It's become my experience of this. And I think it's important that the guides, the guides make a huge distinction between prudence and fear. Prudence is healthy. If there's a sign that says, because I live on Maui, sharks in the water don't swim, it's probably not a bad idea to stay out of the water that day. That's prudence. That's just, I don't want to get eaten by a shark today, so I'm not going to bother getting wet.
I'll tell the listeners right now, pay attention, because Paul is giving you the message that we've been giving you now for years. At the humanity, the shift, it's here, the good news, it's coming. It's the same thing that we have taught over and over in our world travelers. The indigenous are saying the same thing. So how many times do you have to hear it from different people in very many ways for you to understand that we are in the middle of change? Now back to Paul. I want to go back to one of the things you said. If I wanted to get to the upper room, how do you suggest that I accomplish that?
Well, there's a series of attunements that they work with, which actually sort of acclimate I'll just say what they are. Mm-hmm. I know who I am in truth. I know what I am in truth. I know how I serve in truth. These are all attunements. And they say, in truth, a lie can't be held. The true self, or the divine self, they call it sometimes the monad or the Christ or the eternal self, whatever, there's different names, knows who it is. It also knows what it is in manifestation, which is it's come as all of us. And it knows how it serves, which means it knows how it expresses most fully. And then they offer the claim, I am free, I am free, I am free, which is really a claim of the disengagement of the collective fear. The attachments, the entanglements. Truthfully, it's as simple as once you're in this energy, to claim I am in the upper room. And mostly you can just feel the whole lift. You see, the part of us that's already there is the part of us that's expressing that. So the divine self already expresses at that level of vibration. And what we're doing is we're in agreement to align at that level. It's a teaching of alignment. They say it's all about being in energetic accord, and then they'll say ACCORD or ACHORD is on a piano. So the prior attunements are always like notes played on a piano. When they're embodied, you're there. The result of knowing who you are, what you are, and how you serve is the upper room.
Wow. I'm also looking at something I hadn't even thought about. Some of us who are now in this kind of spiritual work came from church. So it was a matter of having to unlearn all the things that we had learned. Now, you came from what you said is more of an atheist. So you were actually denying the divine in you for most of your life.
Well, I didn't know that it was. I didn't know it was I didn't know it was there. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what a spiritual life was or why one would want them. I had I think an interest in the occult when I was a kid. I thought ghosts were kind of spooky and, things like that. But I wasn't, when my family would occasionally go out to eat and people would be praying at the table, we'd just roll our eyes. It just wasn't part of the world I grew up in. I was in New York City in the 60s. We went to therapy. We didn't go to church. And that's how I grew up. But in some ways, it allowed me to have less baggage. I didn't have a lot to overcome. And I also think that I was deeply, deeply hungry for a spiritual life without even knowing what one was or that one could have one. And what happened to me at 25, truthfully, it was one of those sort of weird little like William Jamesian experiences. I was in a hotel room in St. Paul, Minnesota, working on a project, and I couldn't find drugs in Minnesota, and it was awful. And the Gideons leave these little Bibles in the drawer, and I was like, it said prayer for people in crisis. So I didn't know what the crisis was, but I knew I was in one. And I said it. And I don't know why I did, but I did. And 3 days later is when I heard the first voice telling me to get my act together. And that was the beginning of it. That's how it started. But I think I had to become willing. And I also had to become willing to let go of who I thought I was supposed to be, which was quite hard and took a long time because, I was doing this work very quietly. I had a website eventually without my name on it or my photograph. You had to know somebody to get an appointment. I really didn't want to be known. And that's still one of the things that makes me uncomfortable about what I do, but I'm grateful for it, but that's how it happened. So, I'm still not religious, truthfully, and I still have all these questions in spite of all the evidence that I've been given, and I don't think it makes me terribly special. I think I have this very weird skill set that's been developed somehow. But, people have different abilities. Some people can, shoot a basketball into a hoop. I can take dictation. It's really
I can tell you, Paul, that you have so much in common with Lee.
Yeah.
He was the same. He was the reluctant channel. He didn't even put his name on his books. They were on the back in a very small font, and it wasn't Lee Carroll. It was L. Carroll. There is so much in common with both of you.
I'm really loving
and
this.
The fact that you said, hey, I'm just the guy who opens the door.
Yeah.
Well, Kryon has told Lee, hey, you're just the messenger.
Yeah, I'm just the guy who opens the door. There's some very commonality. I don't want to get into that because I don't want to talk about me. What I want to do next, we have been told by your team, and you can tell me if it's appropriate or not, that you might like to channel a short message.
Oh, I didn't know that, but I can see. I mean, I can go there. Let me just see. I'll say one thing. They're saying we would like to say one thing. The idea of who you are. The idea of who you are is what is being addressed now. Is what is being addressed now individually and collectively. The divine self. The divine self. The aspect of self who truly knows. The aspect of self who truly knows is far more available. Is far more available than you think. But you must inquire. But you must inquire. Who do I think I am? Who do I think I am? When you get beyond who you think you are. When you get beyond who you think you are. You may in fact know, you may in fact know. To truly know who you are, to truly know who you are is to become realized, expressed in a higher octave of knowing, in a higher octave of knowing. The true self knows, the true self knows, the small self does her best, the small self does her best, his best to sort through the options, and make sense of chaos, There is less chaos now than you think. There is less chaos now than you think. There is detritus, there is the sloughing away. There is the sloughing away of what has impeded the divine self, individually and collectively to be demonstrated. The possibilities are endless. When you choose in love, when you stop denying the truth of yourself, I am of God, or wish God to be, or whatever you wish God to be. When you stop denying the self, when you stop denying it in the self, you must stop denying all people. You must stop denying it in all people. You cannot be the light. You cannot be the light and hold another in darkness, period. And they're saying period.
You know what? I love the message, my friend. But what I also saw that I really relate to, that we also, I think, have in common, is there was no getting ready for this. In other words, it's always there.
Yeah. It's like switching the radio station in iota and it's playing,
That's right.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that I got my message in, not in these words, but when I was told stop playing church. In other words, don't turn it on, don't turn it off. It's always supposed to be on.
Yeah. That's right.
Latest book is called The Kingdom.
The Kingdom is out.
All right.
Yep.
And so what's it about? What am I going to take away from that?
The kingdom is about how to realize the inherent divine in all manifestation, not just the things you like or approve of, but all things, because the guides say, everything must be of God or nothing can be. And they say, including fear, which is of God, just doesn't know it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot there. But I think it's a practical and very loving book.
Beautiful. Well, I know, Paul, that you offer workshops for people and you have a special promotion for our community, and it's relating to a 5-night workshop where you deliver channeled lectures and you lead Q&A with the audience. Did you want to just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Expand a little bit for us.
It's April 28th through May 2nd. We start, I believe it's 7:30 Eastern time every night. I don't know the title of it. The guides give the title of whatever the series is going to be about a month before. And I don't know the content. I know the title, but they're going to teach what they're going to teach. But the 5-day intensives are I'm not going to say they're fast tracking, because that sounds like you're getting away with something, but they build on a theme and on a teaching and work with the energy of the collective group that's there. So they work through the attunements. They attune everybody in every workshop, but they're building towards their next book. So I don't know what the next book is going to be yet, but I expect by the end of April they're going to be giving us a clue. So it's exciting to be part of those things. It's a wonderful online group if people are interested in exploring the work of the guides.
I think that is exciting. People can find that link in the chat. You can also see it when the replay gets loaded. There'll be a link there on the replay page. If you're listening to this audio and you want that link, I'll just read it out for you. It's studentsoftheguides.com/intensives. But if you want to know more about Paul, that's easy too. You just go to paulselig.com. That's PAULSELIG.com.
You want to spell calm? I'm sorry. I'm just being stupid.
I can. COM.
You probably already done it, Paul, but as Paul, what would you say to our listeners just for the next couple of minutes?
What would I say for the next couple of minutes? I have nothing to say as myself.
As opposed to the guides.
As opposed to the guides, I don't know. I think the thing that I've come to learn is that truth is truth, and it comes through different people and different teachings in different ways. And I think truth will always resonate as such. And, I'm happy to be the guy that sits in the chair for what I do, which is how I really see my job. And I will say that in that book where the guides first introduced the upper room, they told me that I could cross the threshold too. So they said, it's not that I'm not holding the door anymore, but I get to go to the other side, and the books, I realized holding the door was the books. The books were the door for people to enter, and that I got to come too. And I have to say, at that level, it sure works. I'm living a very different life than I would have expected, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I cannot say goodbye to you without being introduced to your gorgeous little fur baby that I can
Lily.
see on the back in the room there.
That's Lily. Yeah, she came with me from New York. We both ended up here on Maui. I came, at the beginning of COVID. I was out of the country when that happened, so I couldn't go home, and I ended up here. And now she's here, and she's been running on the lawn, and she's tired, I guess. So.
That's so
I like
interesting.
to think that she wants to be part of this meeting with us.
Yeah.
So.
She's up now, you see.
Yeah. We're talking about her, and she's up.
Yeah.
Thank you, my friend.
Exactly.
It's so wonderful to talk to you, and thank you for your work on this planet and all that you're doing and the healing that you're accomplishing.
Thank you both. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Ooh! We got a nice little hello there from Lily.
I'll say. Great.
Well, wonderful. We have thoroughly enjoyed our time with you. I invite all of you to go and visit Paul's website and take advantage of that amazing offer of doing that workshop with Paul. So we are going to take a 10-minute break, but we'll see you back here for the Circle of 12.